Amusement parks in America in the 1970s were experiences, not the sanitized, corporate, safety-obsessed parks of today. Genuine thrill rides where danger felt real, where the equipment seemed questionable, where parents sent kids off alone, knowing accidents could happen. The 1970s were a transitional era for amusement parks. The classic parks from the early 1900s were aging. Disney had shown what modern parks could be, but safety regulations were minimal. The rides were dangerous. The culture was looser. This was before liability dominated everything, before FastPass and reserved entry. The 1970s amusement park was chaotic, dangerous, and exciting in ways modern parks cannot replicate. Let's walk through what amusement parks were actually like in the 1970s. Let's step into that world. The parks were regional, not national chains. Every area had its own amusement park. Coney Island in New York, Cedar Point in Ohio, Kennywood in Pennsylvania. These were not Disney. They were local institutions with history and character. Many of the parks were older, some dating from the early 1900s. The infrastructure was aging. Rides were maintained but rarely replaced. The whole park felt vintage because much of it remained original. Arriving at the park meant parking in massive lots. The lots were dirt or gravel, not paved. You would walk from the parking area to the entrance. No trams, no shuttle buses, just walking in the summer heat. The entrance gates had ticket booths. You would buy admission tickets or ticket books. The ticket book system was standard. Books of lettered tickets ran from A to E. A tickets were for small rides. E-tickets were for the big attractions. You would buy a book and ration your tickets carefully. Running out of e-tickets meant buying more or settling for lesser rides. The ticket system created strategy. Which rides were worth the premium tickets? Some parks switched to pay one-price admission in the 1970s. Disney pioneered this. Other parks followed gradually. But many regional parks kept ticket books through the decade. The smell of the park hit you immediately. Popcorn, cotton candy, funnel cakes, cigarette smoke, machine oil, sweat. The combination was distinctive. Every amusement park smelled similar, but slightly different. Smoking was allowed everywhere. People smoked while walking, while waiting in line, even while riding rides if they could hold on. Cigarette butts littered the ground. The smoke was constant and accepted. The roller coasters were mostly wooden. Old wooden coasters rattled and shook. The tracks looked questionable. The cars were simple, a lap bar and maybe a seatbelt. No shoulder harnesses, no advanced restraints. Just a metal bar across your lap. The coasters felt like they might fall apart. The wood creaked. The structure swayed. The trains would rattle violently through turns. You would slam against the side of the car. Bruises were common. The violence was part of the thrill. Steel coasters were emerging. Parks would advertise new steel coasters as modern and safe. But even steel coasters had minimal restraints. The safety standards were decades away from modern requirements. The ride operators were teenagers making minimum wage. They had minimal training. They pushed buttons, pulled levers, and operated rides with passengers' lives in their hands. The casual attitude towards safety was shocking by today's standards. Operators sometimes ran rides faster or longer than intended. They would show off for pretty girls and let their friends ride multiple times without getting off. The lack of oversight meant operators had power, and they used it. Height requirements existed but were loosely enforced. If you were close to the line, operators would let you ride. Parents would put younger kids in thick-soled shoes to make them taller. The Tilt-A-Whirl was a staple at every park. It was a spinning ride that left you dizzy and nauseous. Operators would spin individual cars by hand to make the ride more intense. They targeted specific cars, making them spin faster, harder, longer. Kids would scream for the operator to stop. The operator would laugh and keep spinning. The cruelty was entertainment. The log flume would soak you completely, not just splash you, drenched you. You rode in a log-shaped boat through a water trough, climbed a hill, and dropped down a steep flume. The splash at the bottom would saturate everyone. You walked around the park soaking wet for hours. No changing rooms, no hand dryers. You just air-dried in the sun. The haunted houses were fire hazards. Dark rides moved through spooky scenes with mechanical figures, fake cobwebs, and scary sounds. The buildings were old, and the wiring was questionable. Everything was flammable. The scares were basic. Mechanical ghosts ran on tracks. Strobe lights flashed. Loud sounds startled people. But in the dark, the haunted houses were genuinely scary for kids. The funhouse had physical challenges. Rooms had tilted floors, spinning tunnels, moving walkways, and slides. The challenges were legitimately difficult. Kids would fall, get hurt, and then keep going. The mirror maze was dark and confusing. You would walk through trying not to run into mirrors. The maze had no emergency lighting. If you got truly lost or panicked, you were in trouble. The arcade was inside the park, rows of pinball machines and early video games. Pong and Space Invaders arrived by the late 1970s. The games took quarters. Kids would spend all their money quickly. The carnival food was everywhere. Corn dogs, hot dogs, hamburgers, fries, funnel cakes, cotton candy, popcorn, soda. Everything was overpriced and mediocre. The food would sit in warmers for hours, but eating carnival food felt essential. The funnel cake, dusted in powdered sugar. The cotton candy that stuck to everything. You'd eat until you felt sick, then ride more rides. The games were obviously rigged. Ring toss, basketball, balloon darts, squirt gun races. The games were designed to be nearly impossible. But they still displayed giant stuffed animals as prizes. You'd spend $10 trying to win a stuffed animal worth $3. The carnies would encourage you, so close, try again. The manipulation was transparent but effective. Winning a giant stuffed animal meant carrying it around all day. The prize became a burden, but having it proved you'd won. The crowds on summer weekends were intense. The parks would be packed. Lines for popular rides stretched for hours. There was no FastPass, no virtual queue, just physical lines snaking through the park. Waiting in line meant standing in the sun. No shade, no entertainment, just waiting. You could stand for an hour or more to ride for 2 minutes. Kids would hold places for friends, run to get food, then return. Line cutting was rampant, and arguments happened. The wave pool was revolutionary when it appeared in the 1970s. Artificial waves in a massive pool made wave pools incredibly popular and incredibly dangerous. Drownings happened. Lifeguards were overwhelmed. The water park sections were primitive. Simple slides, shallow pools, minimal filtering systems. The water was often cloudy, and you could not see the bottom. The bathroom situation was terrible. There were too few bathrooms for the crowds. The facilities were dirty. Toilets would overflow. You would hold it as long as possible. Parents would send kids off alone or in groups. You'd meet at a specific location and time. There were no cell phones to coordinate. If plans changed or someone got lost, you dealt with it. Getting lost as a kid was terrifying. The park was massive. Everything looked similar. You'd wander trying to find your family. Eventually, you'd find a park employee who would help. The first aid station was always busy. Heat exhaustion, cuts, scrapes, twisted ankles, broken bones. The park nurse would patch you up and send you back out. Only serious injuries meant leaving the park. The traveling carnival was different from permanent parks. Carnivals would set up in parking lots or fairgrounds. Temporary rides assembled quickly. The rides were even more dangerous than permanent park rides. The carnival rides were maintained minimally. Bolts would be loose, parts would be worn, but the rides would pass whatever inspection existed and operate anyway. Everyone knew carnival rides were sketchy, but rode them regardless. What defined 1970s amusement parks was the danger. Real danger that everyone acknowledged and accepted. Rides could hurt you. Equipment could fail. Safety was your own responsibility. The freedom was significant. Kids roaming unsupervised. Minimal rules. The park was space where kids could be independent and make choices. The parks had character. Each park was unique with its own history, rides, culture. The parks were not corporate-branded experiences. They were local institutions with personality. For people who went to amusement parks in the 1970s, the memories are specific. The smell of cotton candy and cigarettes. The feeling of the wooden coaster rattling violently. The terror of the Tilt-A-Whirls spinning too fast. The sensation of being soaked on the log flume. The 1970s amusement park represented freedom and danger. A time when entertainment meant accepting risk. When safety was secondary to thrills. When parks trusted visitors to be responsible for themselves. The parks today are safer, cleaner, more comfortable. The modern park experience is objectively better in almost every way. But something was lost. The danger made the thrills real. The lack of structure created freedom. For those who experienced 1970s amusement parks, the nostalgia is not about wanting to return to dangerous rides and terrible safety standards. It is about remembering when amusement parks felt genuinely thrilling because the danger was real.